Welcome back, everyone. It's me, Mike the Mapmaker, and it's Business Crime, Episode 2. Last episode, we made a map of a general store with the intention that your players might rob it. And that's just what we're going to cover in this episode. I'm going to look at this map from a dungeon master's perspective. I'm going to talk us through what you need to know on how to run a basic impromptu heist at your D&D table. I'll cover what's at stake for you and your players and how to stay flexible and confident in the face of chaos. I also look at what, if any, prep you need for these challenges, and finally, I'll tell you my general philosophy for criminal elements in my fantasy games. Now, it's worth mentioning, but I will be talking through this in terms of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, but this advice should transfer to any fantasy tabletop RPG you might be playing. Okay, I've got my DM hat on, and it's imagination time. Let's say we have 1 to 4 players at your table, and they've completed their first quest. They've probably just beaten up a group of goblins or something, so they could be anywhere between level 1 and 4. Before they continue on with adventure, they want to spend their hard-earned coin, so they of course go to the local shop. And things are going well as the PCs are deciding what to buy. Pretty standard stuff. But something changes between you and the players. Maybe the shopkeeper is accidentally a bit rude to one of the PCs, and they start to argue with this NPC. Things escalate, and now your players, well, they want to steal all the shopkeep's money, ruin their livelihood, and leave them penniless on the street. Man, this wasn't in the DM script. We had a whole thing for the players to do. They were supposed to go to an oak cave of help Ugly Luke the Ogre renegotiate their annual broadband deal. This was not part of the plan. Well, that's the beauty of this game that we play, isn't it, folks? That rarely things ever go as expected. But it can be scary being confronted with a scenario like this. It can feel like there is an unlimited amount of choices and decisions you have to make as a DM to make this happen and impress your players and friends. Do not worry, your boy Mike the Mapmaker's got you. Don't panic, because we're going to make this easy. All you need to do when you're faced with anything like this, well, you just got to break it down into its key components. So first off, let's ask the question, what's at stake here? Well, this is a basic shop, but I would think of it now as its own mini dungeon. And every dungeon needs an end goal to it, and in our case, well, that's going to be the office behind the counter. That's where the treasure is kept. So we simply stash a bunch of gold in the back there and put some challenges in front of it, and boom! You've got your prize if things go well for the players. Now, I can't tell you exactly what treasure needs to be put into our secure room, because I don't know the economy of your world. 100 gold pieces could be enough to hire a small army on one person's table, but be literal pocket change on another. So my advice, figure out what being rich is in your world, and then put a healthy amount of treasure inside to get your players heading in that direction. This is also where I keep my likes and subscribes. Oh, look at that! You'll never get them locked away in here, I promise you. But you know what? At least you can like and subscribe to this video right now, if you want. But how do we punish the players if they mess things up? In a regular dungeon, your player's passing is always on the table, usually caused by a big boss or something. In our case, well, the closest thing we have to that is, of course, the shopkeep. Now, they aren't as dangerous as, say, a dragon might be defending its hoard of gold, but I would say, straight away, that the main fail-state for our shop dungeon isn't a visit from the Grim Reaper, no. I think the main thing is getting arrested! Busted! And we can make our shopkeeper quite threatening to the thieves in that regard. So we now know, out of all the infinite outcomes, it probably comes down to the players either get the money and run, or they fail and get arrested by the cops, and everything after, well, that can be dealt with once we know which way it goes. So, we've sorted out the stakes, but we need to throw challenges at our player to make things interesting. Which brings us to our next section, which is, of course, what challenges do we need? When thinking about the challenges for this shop dungeon, let's go back to a question I asked last video. How does a shopkeeper even defend themselves from any half-decent adventurer? I mean, game mechanic-wise, your shopkeeper is probably just a commoner, and if we look at their stat block, they're a pushover. They've got barely any health, 10 AC, and if you didn't know about this meme already, people have noticed that a house cat could legitimately take out a commoner with just 4 hits in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. I also like the stat blocks as a D1 instead of just writing the number 1. It's kind of like a comical commitment to dice rolling at that point. Anyway, what can we even do with this shopkeeper then? Well, you're going to need to get the town guard involved. An individual guard isn't anything for a PC to worry about, but they'd have access to one of the most overpowered things in tabletop RPGs, teamwork. If an alarm goes out to the guards, that's disaster for your heist. Squads of guards will be deployed, probably backed by a couple of magic users as well. And at this low level, well, that's actually going to be quite a threat to your players. Just endless hordes of guards running at them, that's pretty scary. Also, these mortal races, like humans, elves, and dwarves, they're actually smart. They're not like goblins. They'll actively help each other and can deploy smart tactics. On top of that, even if you can defeat the initial town guard response, well, if you haven't bothered to hide your identity now, well, society can shut you out. Your players will be labeled as bandits and will have a bounty on their heads. This is absolutely devastating to them. Because, of course, next time they go into another town or a city, they'll be alerted, and they're going to be responding to them, chasing them down, trying to lock them up, stopping them going to the shops. It's a cascading nightmare that can completely change an adventure. Now, with this point in mind, all the shopkeeper needs to do then is get the attention of the guards. That is their entire objective if they face any sort of danger or trouble relating to the PCs. Now, it sounds obvious and a bit silly, but this point will actually direct all of the design we are about to do. So first things first, this shop will need an alarm. Again, this is bottom rank stuff, so I think a small shop like this would only have something like a bell. A large bell. I'm going to pop ours right here by the back door. Now, I could have added this element permanently to the map, but this is something I want you to think of and implement in your own maps and games. Doesn't have to be a bell, but every shop needs a way to get the guards' attention. It's fantasy, so use your imagination. Could be a magical stone they squeeze, a firework launched from a window, a crack team of cheeky gnomes who run to the local guard. Doesn't matter what it looks like, but this system is absolutely essential to protect your business as a commoner in these medieval times. So alerting the guards is our main challenge. What's another one we can throw at the players? Well, we know the treasure's in the back room.
Before the treasures are smuggled out of the country.
So, to stop people from just walking in there and grabbing it while our shopkeeper's distracted, let's throw a lock on the door. In terms of gameplay, the better the lock our players are faced with, the longer it'll take in-game to get past. And of course, time is important currency, because the longer it takes to get through that door, the more time the town guard have to actually get on site and start dealing with your players' crimes. So our shopkeeper's on the lower end of things money-wise, so this is going to be an easy lock. Now, most of the time when dealing with a lock in fantasy games like Dungeons & Dragons, there are 3 ways to get by it. I'm going to rank them from player ease. So easiest is probably finding the key and just using it on the door. You know, the shopkeeper's got a key somewhere. It's got to be on site, right? Well, then all our players need to do is have a little search and find it, right? Which means all we have to do as a DM is throw an investigation check at them, right? Sorry, I don't know why I'm getting so worked up about this. Well, yes, of course, you could throw an investigation check, and if they pass the DC, well, they found the key. But for our players, well, this is a risky proposition. Yes, they might find the key instantly and get the door straight open, but then again, they might not find the key, and in certain cases, there might not even be a key to be found. So yeah, it's a bit of a gamble, but at the end of the day, if they succeed, definitely the easiest way in. So let's take a pause and let's play a game. Take a look at this. I've hidden an invisible key somewhere in the store. It's where the shop keeps it at night once they've locked up. Where would you guess to look? I'll give you 3 seconds. Pause if you want to think about it. 3, 2, 1. I hid it right here. So well done if you correctly guess where it is. Don't worry if you didn't. In fact, if you didn't find it, pop a comment down below. Tell us where you would have hidden the key. So that's the first way to get past the door. What about way number 2? Smashing the door down. This is a very direct way to get past this challenge. In 5th edition, doors and other inanimate objects actually have health and AC. Ours is just a wooden door, so from a maths perspective, it would look something like this. Whoa! Give that door a butter knife and it could take down a team of villagers.
お前はもう死んでいる。何?
Anyway, you could have the players roll attack rolls and then just damage the door and have it be in combat rounds and going again and again until the door goes down. That sounds a little too much to me. If the players attack the door with their weapons or just try to boot it down, well, to keep things simple, I would just make it be an athletics check for them. This check, we can just use the AC of the door, which at these early levels is quite high, but depending on how they attempt it, I would modify the challenge. For example, if they're using a bludgeoning weapon, I'd give them advantage on the roll. If they were using a piercing weapon, I'd give them disadvantage. Because if I was breaking down a wooden door in real life, I'd rather use a sledgehammer than a javelin. Makes sense, I think. Now, if they told me they were just going to focus breaking the lock and not the actual door itself, well, I might be generous and drop the DC down a bit for them. I like to reward players who go the extra mile and are actively thinking about what's going on. Once the door is broken open, well, that's that, they are in. So what's the downside? Seems rather easy, doesn't it? Well, the biggest downside is, of course, this is going to make a loud noise. It is not quiet breaking down doors and smashing locks, so if you go the direct way, you're more likely to get the guards' attention. And finally, the third way, lock-picking the door. This is the one from the players that has the most requirements. We need a player to have a set of lock-picking tools, and hopefully someone who is proficient with them, otherwise this could take a while. Now this is, of course, a sleight of hand check. That probably will take longer than breaking the door down, so what is the benefit? Well, it's very sneaky. Even if it takes longer, you can do it silently. So if the guards aren't aware of the crime and there's nothing immediately pressing your players, then it's probably their safest bet to get through the door. Well, whatever way our players decide to approach this, it's going to come down to one of these 3 skill challenges: investigation, athletics, or sleight of hand. So when determining how successful our players are, I actually think the DC isn't really that important. No, it's much more about what the players roll during the heist. That is the key element. Because in the context of our shop dungeon, this is very low security, so I think the players will always be able to overcome these simple challenges. It's just a matter of time cost. What do I mean by that? Well, the worse they roll, the longer it'll take them to actually overcome the challenge. So if we look back at what we planned already, we know that the longer it takes for our thieves, well, that's higher the chance the guards will, 1, be alerted to what they're doing, or 2, arrive on the scene to stop them if they already know what's going on. When we get our head around this concept, then decision making becomes easier for us as DMs. If they bumble something, we escalate. If they're super successful, we de-escalate. So, we have 2 challenges for our players in our shop dungeon, but I think we need one more, and this is our ace up our sleeve. What we're going to add is going to supercharge the shopkeeper's ability to defend their store, alert the guards, and it costs the shopkeep barely anything. So what is this mystery element that's so incredibly powerful? I am, of course, talking about giving our shopkeeper a dog. That's right, a dog. Dogs are amazing. Not just in real life, but at our fantasy tables. Now, why is that? They've got keen hearing and smell, meaning it's harder to sneak around the goods when a dog is present. If someone shoplifts or pickpockets something, the dog might be able to sniff it out. On top of that, dogs are tougher than our pathetic commoners, so they can actually help in a fight as well. Most importantly of all, though, I would say, is if you upset or alert the dog with your clandestine actions, well, it can bark up a storm. Which is, of course, a great way to draw the guards, or anyone else's, attention. Now, dogs aren't infallible. In fact, a pack of sausages or a clever use of the animal handling skill could bypass this security challenge pretty easily. But I think if you are ever in need of something to throw at the players, not just in our shop example here, something to make stealth more challenging for those players, well, a dog is a great addition. It's absolutely the way to go, in my opinion. Now, from what I was saying, even getting spotted during a crime can be awful. It can shut you out of society. That's a pretty big risk. So, to make things fair, I suggest that a successful robbery in your game, well, it should bring a pretty big reward to balance it out. Especially to those who can pull it off and not even get caught. The coffers of this shop for a low-level team should be much more generous than actually completing a quest. I have a core philosophy in my games, and it's dead easy to remember. It goes like this: crime does in fact pay. Editor Mike here, just a quick note. I do of course mean crime pays in our game, not in real life. You should probably follow the laws of wherever you live. Just a heads up. In the game, that's what I meant. Back to the video! Being a successful fantasy criminal, I believe you should be very rewarding gold-wise. You should be able to get very rich quick. Well, why on earth, then, would your players want to do anything other than crime if it is so profitable? Well, I'll cover this in another episode, but basically the trade-off is that the impact of their actions, well, it'll change the world around them. So, we've established the stakes for our players. We've come up with a plan of action for our shopkeeper. With this done, well, you now have the basic beats for any D&D crime scenario your players might throw at you. So whether the players go full barbarian and beat up the shopkeeper in broad daylight, smash the door down, run off with the treasure, or if they are really sneaky, come back at night, pay off the guard dog, and lockpick in, we can simply go back and ask, what do we have plan-wise and tool-wise, and what would make sense to happen next with these elements? Prep-wise, we're sorted. We have our maps and a few basic elements. All you need to do now is decide how long you think it will take the guards in your town to be alerted and respond. What happens after that? Well, you'll have to tune in to our next episode of It's Business Crime to find out. Next up, I will be making us a place for the town guard to take our players. If they mess up and get arrested, we're making a jail cell. So if that sounds good to you, tune in next time. We'll see how many years your stinky players receive for their unforgivable crimes. Keep on trucking. I'll see you there.